Thank you for joining us for the Gruber Morning Show, and this is the Tesla Roadster version of our podcast every Tuesday. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome, everybody.
The image behind us was an AI representation of a yellow Tesla Roadster in an alpine setting and with a lake and snow-capped mountains, and it didn't disappoint. The wheels are a little off, too many spokes in there, I think, but other than that, it's a reasonable facsimile.
It looks pretty good. No charge port, but and it reminds me of what the Dubai guys would probably do. That looks more like a gold-plated than a silver, than a yellow. It's beautiful. It looks great.
Yeah, these are the cars that they give to their kids that are going to college here in the U.S., right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
If you look at the lettering on the back, it probably says something sideways, but yeah, pretty good. And the reason we put it up here is because we're starting to promote heavily the Tesla takeover in Europe in May of this year, May 25th and 26th. And we'll talk a little bit more about who's going to be there and what to expect there and our live podcast that's going to come from there. But there will be Tesla Roadsters there, and that's the reason that I put this picture up. A lot of other Teslas, of course, but the Tesla Roadster community is going to participate, and it's from a number of different countries. It's not just Austria or Germany, but there are probably about 15 or so Tesla clubs, maybe even 20, including Scandinavia, that are going to participate in this. And if it's anything like the U.S., where the Tesla takeover has really grown over the last 3 years, this should be a good event.
It's good. I'm excited to see how it goes, and I think it's going to be a wonderful place.
Jesse, we've got another picture to pop up. It's the clean ESS pack. We showed you a Tesla Roadster battery pack, the 1,000-pound monstrosity, and in the last podcast, and we have some new information on this. As I said in the last podcast, I walked by this over at Gruber Motor Company. They had just pulled it out of a car, and I said, wow, where'd you guys get a new battery pack like this? And Brian, one of the mechanics, says, that's not new, I clean it. We clean them all before we work on them. They get really grungy because they're somewhat exposed underneath the car.
Sure.
Rain, dust, dirt, leaves, twigs, they're pretty grungy when they come out. And this one, you can tell the pride that our mechanics and our engineers apply to anything at Gruber Motor Company, because this is indicative of the type of pride that they have in their work, attention to detail. But anyway, somebody pointed out in the next picture, Clean ESS Pack -2, they said, wow, it looks like you guys even cleaned the service tag that's on the side of the pack. And that's that thing to the left there, right by the orange service plug socket. Oh, there we go. You guys can zoom in. There's absolutely no entry there, meaning that no technician has worked on this. Well, we weren't sure why it was blank like that. So one of the original Tesla guys who joins us once in a while on these podcasts, Michael Aldea, he was the ESS Pack guru, and there are a number of old pictures of him working on ESS packs in his own little area there. It was fairly small back then. But what he said was, and he explained why this didn't have there was no entry. He says, it looks like the battery was never repaired by us, meaning out in the field or after in production. All the torque marks are green. If someone from service opened the front cover, the torque marks would be red. Well, that explains something to us, because oftentimes we've seen those two different colors, not only on the hardware, but inside the sheets that are circling the on the bonding plates where the cell connections are.
Yes.
Yeah, square or round, and it is two different colors, red and green. So it looks like this battery was installed in the Roadster, never dropped, never serviced, never taken out, and that's why it would have an absence of marks like this. And for those of you interested, we tell the community constantly, and the service centers, make sure you pull that service plug when you've got a brick battery. And I'm going to try to point to it here. I have to do this backwards. Oh, I can't because it's going to cut off. But right by that service log tag, there's that orange socket. That is where the service plug resides. And although here it would be very easy to extract, when it's up in the car, your clearance on either side of the battery is maybe an inch or so or less. You've got hinges for the trunk lid and the struts that are blocking a direct reach to that plug. And but you have to pull this when you have a brick battery, because without this being pulled, that ESS pack will continue to supply current to various devices that are still draining that battery. Things like the 12-volt systems, the VMS. And so anyway, that's the location, and that's what it looks like.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
I know that my arm is well beyond the size of what it would take to pull
Never do it,
pull
Mark.
that.
Yeah.
I would never even probably try it. For somebody who might have a chance to pull that, if they were to remove that left strut, that left air strut, and just prop up the trunk, would that give enough clearance for somebody with slightly larger arms to be able to still get in there?
We've tried that. It doesn't help much.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's clearance distances, and then there's also hinges that are involved in that. It's if you're interested in what it looks like, on our website under newsletters, there is one newsletter that says what to do if your Roadster gets bricked, and there's some pictures, more detailed pictures that show the location of that service plug and how inaccessible it can be. Now, our customers have gotten creative. They'll take a coat hanger, for example, and it has to be thick, and they'll take the looped end and then pull that way.
Yes.
The reason that might work is there's a handle on there that normally sits flush, and that's the interlock switch handle in the HVIL loop, they call it, or high voltage interlock loop. That handle has to be pulled 90 degrees so it's facing back, and then you pull straight out horizontally. And that's your best shot at getting that service plug out of there. If you have a teenager at home, they have no problem, unless they're lifting weights, of course.
Yes.
But a normal teenager could reach in there, and that's usually who we have do it, is in our GMC shop. It's the younger guys without the thick arms.
Yes, when I was in my skinny days as a teenager.
Right. You also have to be careful with the service plug, and we should throw that out there. They are old, aged, and brittle, and about 20% of the service plug removal attempts by either customers, owners, or by us could result in a broken service plug handle, which we then repair. Again, if any of you know where we can get these service plugs, we are desperately seeking a solution, and the hunt continues, the sourcing continues. Highlander, welcome, Highlander. I tried to call you yesterday, and I tried again this morning because you had called into Gruber Motor Company asking for me to call you, and your voicemail is full. It does not allow any voicemail messages. You can reach me, by the way, the same number you called into Gruber Motors, extension 207, if you want to reach me directly. He's saying, will the destruction of the bridge in Baltimore have any impact on the Gruber companies?
Do you know about that?
I do not. I don't watch TV or news, but tell us about it.
The Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore this morning early was hit by a cargo ship, one of the supports.
Yeah.
And as a result of the cargo ship hitting that support, the entire bridge collapsed. This is the bridge that is highway or Interstate 695 across into Baltimore. So there are some casualties expected. It's a very sad story, but yes, the entire span collapsed as a result of the cargo ship actually hit one of the supports on the bridge.
Were there commuter cars on the bridge at the time it collapsed?
There were.
Okay.
It was early morning, so there were not a lot of commuter cars, but there are. As of about 2 hours ago, there were 6 people unaccounted for.
Amazing. Okay, well, that's quite a tragedy. You're right.
But it is across the country from us. I do not believe it's going to have any impact on the Gruber companies.
Yeah, we have products shipped in and products shipped out, of course, and that would be the only thing that would be affected. We don't have any staff in Baltimore.
We don't have any staff in Maryland, and nothing in Baltimore, and any overseas shipments typically come in on the Pacific ports, either at Long Beach or at Los Angeles.
Okay, another item for you. We get asked this often, excuse me, what do we do with old batteries? Lithium ion, sheets, modules out of Tesla Model S's. We haven't had a very large quantity where that's become a concern, but most recently it has been. So we began to reach out to some of the recyclers, and Redwood, for example. Locally here, we have Li-Cycle. And it took about a week and a half or so to finally get a response from either of them,
Yes.
actually.
Yes.
And once they did, they were stellar. We got all kinds of information. And what was interesting, and for those of you that want to see this process, a YouTube influencer called Zach Nelson, whose handle on YouTube is Jerry Rig Everything. He actually went to Li-Cycle here in Gilbert, Arizona, not too far from Phoenix, and did a video on how this process takes place. And essentially, there's a conveyor belt that moves batteries up about 20 feet or so, and then it drops off into what could be most easily described as a garbage disposal. It kind of is the same technology. It grinds it up.
Okay.
And cooling it with water, of course. And what was on the conveyor was a combination of EV battery type modules and tool type battery modules that go in your Makita or into your Milwaukee hand drill.
Okay.
Yeah. And then cell phones, anything that has batteries in it, lithium-ion batteries. What then happens is it gets ground up and it becomes black mass, they call it, which is a very high-grade ore, unlike the stuff that you get out of the ground where you have to sift away all the rocks and debris and mud and, things that you don't want. This becomes a very high-grade ore. So what we found out is we're going to have to, of course, palletize our batteries, and we'll ship them to whichever puts the highest bid in, which is the next thing. We weren't sure whether we're going to have to pay or whether it's free or whether they pay us for this high-grade ore. It turns out they pay for the ore.
Yes, they will pay you for the batteries.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think you're going to get anything for a cell phone because, it's probably minuscule.
Right.
But for the amount of weight that we have, we're actually going to collect bids from the people that are recycling these batteries. So for those of you interested, that was, it's a pretty good video to watch. I think Jerry Rig Everything did a pretty good job with that. And it will kind of, explain what happens to these batteries after they've reached end of life.
That's very interesting. And yeah, over the years, we've slowly accumulated more and more bad modules, both in the Model S's and in the Roadsters. And so it's nice to have options to be able to finally recycle those.
By the way, talking to Redwood, once they figured out who we were, I got a call from one of their contacts, and he says, Gruber Motors, yes, we know you guys. I said, really? What do you mean we? He says, well, we're all ex-Tesla people here.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense, of course. JB had a lot of friends when he worked at Tesla, and he's back on the board of directors at Tesla. So, but yeah, he says that what happens is nickel, cobalt, and lithium are recycled. Lithium prices are down 87% from last year.
Yeah.
So we should probably hurry before it nosedives any further. But yeah, he was. We talked quite a bit about the Tesla Roadster, and of course, when you talk to ex-Tesla people, they don't talk about the Model 3, the Y, the Cybertruck.
No.
They're talking about Tesla Roadster because that was their legacy. That's where they learned their craft, was during the Tesla Roadster days. So yeah, it was kind of rewarding to talk about the people that work there, most of which we know, of course. And so getting back to this battery now for just a moment, there's another picture here called EV Europe Pack, Jesse. And for those of you that remember the black Tesla Roadster 1,000-pound battery pack that we showed earlier in the podcast here, this is a version that is being built by a company in Europe called EV Europe. And it's an impressive looking enclosure. It looks physically identical to that black enclosure that you saw earlier. Dimensionally, I'm sure it's the same. But it almost looks as if the sides are made out of billet aluminum, perhaps machined. Could also be wood, I suppose, based on the color.
Could be. It's probably a metal of some sort. Are those like racks that we're seeing inside that battery?
It is indeed. And the caption on this was, we are waiting for the cells to arrive. So apparently they have the battery cells that are coming in. And once they have those, they're going to populate and fill this up with batteries and potentially have the first aftermarket Tesla Roadster battery that could go into production. And the reason I say first, there's some other hobbyists and experimenters that have been working on
Oh,
this.
yes.
Marco Nolte, Ev McNeilson, for example. I think even Chris Rosa has been working on this. But none of them have reached scaling to production level yet where they can start mass producing these.
Yeah, they're all those others, while they're making impressive progress, they're basically research projects. They're trying to figure out whether or not it can be done. They're almost still in the proof of concept stage. This would be, and what I see is less Tesla Roadster, in all honesty, because, well, we have 2,000 cars worldwide. But by proving that the concept can be done, it's almost like in ages past when people said you can't run a 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
As soon as you prove the concept can be done, watch out, world. You're going to start seeing third-party batteries for all kinds of EVs.
Yeah.
Once when people could finally realize that the 4-minute mile was possible, and now high schoolers run 4-minute miles. I mean, it's crazy.
So it's these innovators that are really bringing this to the forefront, and the race is on. We'll see who comes up with the first scalable battery. Highlander says, I'm still logged out of my phone and my email. That's why I haven't responded to my bed.
I think it was his bad.
Dad. Oh, my. Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Uwe Lehman says, womp womp. All right. Thank you.
I don't know what that is.
That's okay.
You know what, Highlander? I was going to mention that. He says, notice how funny electrical outlets on the wall are? That's how you can tell it's Europe. See that little horizontal outlet? It's got the two little pins.
Yes.
And they run, they don't have 120 volts going to homes. They have 230 volts, and it's 50 hertz instead of 60 hertz. You know, the Europeans always like to do things differently. They don't want to adopt our stuff, although NACS may be an exception. We'll see.
It might be. I can totally understand the 230 volts because with 230 volts, you have a lot less amperage, which technically makes it safer. I've never understood why 50 hertz instead of 60.
You know, there was a reason for that, and in all of my electronics training, I used to know that, but I'm drawing a blank right now. There was a reason for that. In planes, for example, they have 400 hertz, and the reason for that is it reduces the size of the magnetics and the capacitors.
Okay, that makes sense.
Weight is everything in aeronautics.
Yep.
So. But I remember as a kid growing up in Europe until I was 8, sticking an earthworm into both of those little outlets. I never did that again. Let me leave it there. Looks like Kim Estrie is joining us. She says, "Good morning, guys. Thanks for being there, Kim."
Good morning, Kim. And on TikTok, Elric2333 says, "Electric cars are the future. Stop the electric hate." You are preaching to the choir as far as we are concerned. We totally agree with you there.
Yep. Got another picture to post up here, Jesse, and this will be a series of them. First one is going to be Rivet D0. One of our people in the Tesla Roadster community, Andy Nickel, he's in the UK, by the way, and he's beginning to get very good at repairing Teslas over there, along with Neil Wise in the UK.
Yes.
These guys are really gaining some ground. He says in a Facebook post, he says, I took steps to finally renew the rivets on the entire 2.0 pack on VIN number 664. These packs were cursed with bleed test errors that where the rivets were glued and ring terminals onto the sheets, onto the bonding plates. And there are 111, he counted them, rivets in total. I don't think we've ever done that. That's a bunch. They become loose over time. They create errors which lead to the Roadster not driving and only being able to be mobile again once the voltage bleeds out at around 60% state of charge. What the problem also is, a pop rivet is not a predictable clamping device. There's a little steel pin inside the middle, and when you tighten that down, the two little rings, it can snap at any point in time. So you can't guarantee the same amount of clamping force
Sure.
that you can with hardware, where you have a torque wrench that
Right.
you're cranking down.
Right.
So what we ended up doing years ago was we created a tech tip on this phenomena. We weren't the ones to discover it. Tesla had discovered it during the Roadster release, actually, and actually rebuilt some of the battery packs as a result. But a number of them went out in the field. And this was the fix that we came up with. Instead of doing what Tesla did, which requires a $50,000 ultrasonic wire bonder welder, we ended up using the same hole the rivet was in, drilled it out, and then used PC hardware, the 1/4-inch hardware.
Yes.
And we tighten it to a specific torque. And we used the type of bolts that have like a star washer equivalent so that it digs into the bonding plate,
Right.
which is something that also that Andy is doing. So if we go to the next picture here, Rivet -1, there's the pack. You'll see 11 sheets there. All of those sheets on both sides of the sheet have what are called bonding plates, which tie the cells together in bricks. Rivet -2 shows the bonding plates and the rivet that is connected there. You can see it toward the center there, and there's a pop rivet there. The picture Rivet -3 shows the rivet drilled out. 1/8-inch drill, by the way, works perfectly. You have to make sure you have a vacuum cleaner so you're picking up all of your shavings as you're drilling, because you don't want that getting in under the bonding plates where the cells are and the bonding wires. And then rivet number 4 shows the rivet once it's been drilled out. There isn't much left of it. And then rivet 5 shows how Andy actually cleaned the bonding plates. Sandpaper or something abrasive that gives it a better connection. And eventually he's going to take rivet -5, which is his version of the PC hardware that we use. And it looks like it's got a star washer built into it, which gives it a good bite. Rivet -5. There we go. And then eventually that gets torqued down into rivet -7. There we go. And what you have now is the rivet has been eliminated, the surface has been cleaned, and that wire that now goes off into that pile of hot glue eventually ends up going to a socket underneath the battery management board, the BMB board as they call it, which is responsible for monitoring the brick activity at the sheet level. And it also does balancing, sheet balancing, a very important piece of electronics, part of the battery safety management system in a Roadster as well. At one point, Andy said, well, you know what? I drilled in, and it was getting late in the day, which is rivet number 8, and he ended up having his drill slip into one of the cells.
Oh.
It didn't cause any problems with shorting or anything like that, because that fusible link wire from the cell does go to that bonding plate anyway, so he just strengthened the bond basically. But he did chew it up a bit, so he was asking for a recommendation as to what to do with that. And I said, well, it doesn't look like the cell's been breached, so nothing's going to leak out of it.
Right.
But to play it safe, cut the bonding wires both on the top and on the bottom, taking that cell completely out of service, which is exactly what we do with a resistive cell. And again, a Tesla Roadster is not going to notice one of 6,831 cells missing.
Exactly.
That MIA cell will be irrelevant.
Well, Pete, so
yeah.
for that one, so if you said he hit the steel into it, making the bonding stronger, so he has to chip all that out too, right?
No. Actually, what he's going to do there is the bonding plate is simply dimpled a bit. In fact, there's a better shot of it if you go to the next picture, rivet number 9. And even if the bonding plate was touching the top of the cell, it would be akin to the fusible link. Of course, it no longer be fusible because you've got a lot more metal there.
Right.
But that isn't the case based on his pictures. So what he did was, or what we recommended was, to snip out the fusible link wire.
Gotcha.
On both sides. So there you have it. He says, these sheets are heavy. I can manage a sheet on my own, but it's a struggle at 50 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds.
110.
110 pounds. Okay.
Yeah.
So he says, I forget how heavy these are. So what I sent him back was, our lab guys typically aren't the ones that carry these sheets around. It's the mechanics out on the floor that go to the gym a few times a week to do this type of work. 110 pounds is up there. Yep, that's true. So anyway, Andy, hats off to you and your efforts there, doing good work in the UK and keeping those roadsters alive.
Couple comments we have. Highlander, he talking about 50 and 60 hertz. Says Japan has both 50 and 60 hertz electricity. The reason is because of the British and the Americans.
So they're trying to please both, then I take it.
And he says the submarines are like aircraft. They have 400 hertz for the exact same reason as aircraft.
Wait, there you go. Yep.
Yep. And Niels says, right, we made electro sausages in lack of better ways. No problems.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll bet your little worm turned into a sausage.
Yes.
Niels also said, I just read about 50 hertz versus 60. Westinghouse chose 60. General Electric and UK engineers chose 50. 60 hertz is a little better for long distance. 50 is a little better for shorter. Maybe that's why everyone but Americans use 50.
There's also a different tone in your audio equipment when you're in Europe.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely positive of that.
Because you can hear that 60 hertz buzz if you've got a poor ground in your audio equipment.
Well, and it's going to be 60 or 600 or 6,000 because of the harmonics, and for this would be 50 or 500. 500 or 600 hertz is very different.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting how these standards didn't quite evolve in all parts of the world. All right, we've got another, I think I've got a picture of this one. Yeah, VIN number 848, if you can throw that up. This is a Tesla Roadster 2010. It's currently bid at $40,000 on Bring a Trailer, and we like to bring the Roadsters for sale into these discussions to help promote the sale. This one sold about a month or two ago for $69,500. It was one of the lowest, most recent Bring a Trailer sales that we've seen. And then suddenly it appeared on Carl's Facebook site for $75,000. And I thought, well, I thought it already sold. Did the customer buy it back? What happened? Well, we just found out that what happened was the original successful bidder did not take the car for whatever reason. So the car is still available for sale, and it's currently back on Bring a Trailer. The statistics on this are, let's see if I can get that here. It has a lower CAC of 119, and that might have been what scared some people.
Yeah.
But they say that the standard mode charge is 143 to 145, which isn't that bad.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes to from $40,000 here. There's even some talk in the notes there that the battery could be replaced. Of course, that's always an option. But it does look like a good-looking radiant red. It's a 2.25, which makes it somewhat unique in that there weren't too many of those released. It was Tesla upgrading Roadsters to help them sell toward the end of the run.
Right. So this is one of the very latest 2.0s, and they had put many of the 2.5 upgrades into the 2.0 Tesla.
Right. It has a sound deadening package, so that's an upgrade. And anyway, if you're interested, it's on Bring a Trailer. It's 60,000 miles. So we'll see what it bids to this time around. I think it's got like 4 days to go or something like that.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep promoting it.
We've got another picture here, VIN 1107, and I'm giving you a preliminary here. This one is being processed right now for the Tesla Roadster Matchmaking site on our website. This is a California car. It is going to be available here shortly, and let me get to the statistics on this one so that I can give you a lot more information about this one.
This looks like one of those Thunder Gray cars.
It is, yes. Not my favorite color, but some people like it, you know. Of course, my color preferences keep changing. Remember, I never liked
Yes.
Arctic white. Now that's one of my favorites. I don't
Yes,
know
I
why.
remember that.
So the asking on this is going to be $125,000. You may say, well, why so high if, Bring a Trailer is only getting $70,000 to $80,000? Well, this happens to be a 3.0 upgrade. And it looks like a recent 3.0 upgrade, so it's going to have a good CAC. And the CAC on this one was just over 200 miles. I didn't bring that with me here, but 201, I think it is. It is a 2008. It is Thunder Gray. It's VIN 331, and it's got 38,500 miles on the odometer. It will be live on our Roadster Matchmaking site in probably a day or two. We're waiting for one more bit of information, which is the standard charge level. And at that point, you can take a look at it and see the quality, the interior, the exterior, all of that.
And, that's one of the things to remember on the matchmaking site is people are allowed to put whatever price they think is appropriate for their vehicle.
Sure.
When you take out $45,000 for a recent R80 pack, that puts it down to about $80,000. That's in the ballpark of where that other one was at 75.
Mm-hmm. And something else that I need to point out, when you list with some of these pay-per-view, auctions, you can't just simply promote your own car and sell it.
Right.
It kind of freezes that because somebody's involved in a commission stream. In our Roadster Matchmaking site, we encourage you to promote your car.
Mm-hmm.
And refer them to the web link, which is full of high-quality pictures, all of the technical details, and they can contact us for tech support if they have questions.
By all means. We're not getting a commission. We're not charging for the tech support. It's our way of giving back to the community.
And the goal, after all, is to get your car sold, not protect our non-existent commission.
That's right. Hey, on the 60 hertz versus 50 hertz.
Yeah.
One other thing, Niels was right. Westinghouse was one of the influencers in the United States. The other person who greatly influenced the adoption of the 60 hertz standard was none other than Nikola Tesla.
Really? Okay.
Because he preferred that frequency for his alternating current systems.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And he was doing a lot of work with step-up, step-down transformers and must have recognized perhaps some efficiencies there. Now, you know the guy that believed in 0 hertz?
No.
Thomas Alva Edison.
Really?
DC has no cycles. There is no hertz.
Okay. Yes,
There you
that's
go,
right.
see?
That would be right because it would be because it's a direct current
And they were actually burying gigantic cables in the streets of New York, D.C., and they had to be huge because, you couldn't step the voltage up or down.
right.
And they certainly couldn't make it into the hundreds of thousands of volts because, that would be dangerous being underground and or you'd have so much line loss if you put it above ground. But yeah, Thomas Alva Edison was on the wrong track. And I don't know whether he ever, well, he may have realized it, but he never admitted it. With DC.
That would be like him too.
And then Westinghouse was backing Nikola Tesla.
Yes. So that's so 60 hertz. By the time the choice came for infrastructure changes to 50 or 60, there was just way too much 60 hertz infrastructure in the United States. It was too costly for them to go backwards.
Yep. Don't have a picture for you here for those of you that like roadsters, but we have a PIM that was coated with a reflective shield on the bottom of the PIM, or a radiant barrier, and it is going through testing at this point, in VIN 711 actually.
Yes.
We're probably going to have to wait until we get our Phoenix summers here to really do a good conclusive test because we want some real heat. Right now, what are we having in the mid 70s or so?
Yeah, mid 70s,
Yeah.
low 80s.
Yeah.
Are the guys traveling in the car with a computer log turned on so that they're actually monitoring temperatures real time yet?
Oh, yeah,
or-
yeah, very much so. There hasn't been a lot of testing taking place yet because we're still waiting for some warmer weather. But
Sure.
they do have both PEMs available now, one with and without. So we have a control PEM, and we're going to see if this is a modification that will begin to relieve some of the over temp issues that roadsters see during the summer, not just in Phoenix, but around the world.
See, anecdotally, it's going to be really easy for you to tell.
Hmm.
You're going to drive home and you're going to get home and say, wow, I had air conditioning the whole way.
Right. Yeah. And also full power because they go into limp mode when they've decided that it's too hot.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So we can do the scientific tests. I know that of course they're necessary. We have to be able to prove it. But anecdotally, we'll be able to prove it within a day.
Yeah. Good point. Highlander's got a good question, and it leads us into another topic that I'll jump to here with the Roadster podcast. He says, "Can you explain what CAC is? Calculated amp hour capacity. Are we really going to go down that Edison rabbit hole?" Well, I have to, Highlander, because the high school that I went to was a trade school, and it was called Edison Tech. And believe me, no matter where you went in that school, there were pictures of Thomas Alva Edison. He was the deity. He was kind of like at Scientology. You have pictures of L. Ron Hubbard everywhere. They even have a little office in each of the Scientology, I don't know if you call them churches or centers, where they have a empty office that is reserved should L. Ron Hubbard ever show up.
Oh,
Swear to God.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is how cult religions operate, perhaps. I'm sorry if I've offended anyone out there, but so anyway, same thing. Thomas Alva Edison was omnipresent in that high school, and Nikola Tesla's name was rarely mentioned, if at all. So, all right, CAC, getting back to that, calculated amp hour capacity. There are questions about how do you optimize your CAC reading?
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes important, I guess, to some people when they're selling a car because, the higher the CAC, the better the battery looks. You're not going to get much of a change, but there are ways that you can optimize your CAC reading. One of the first things that happens is you get what's called CAC drift. Oh, let me back up a moment. The calculated amp hour capacity algorithm, according to the original design engineers at Tesla, was a complicated one.
Mm-hmm.
It's buggy. It's not a perfect science. And I'm not sure they could agree on very much, but it is a complicated algorithm.
So in general, high level, how would you calculate the amp hour capacity of a battery?
I don't know that, but let me tell you what they say is a normal condition with CAC. They say that CAC drift is normal. A deep discharge, especially from range charge, which in a Tesla Roadster means you do what the VDS screen tells you not to do because it can eventually damage your battery, which is do a full range charge where you charge it right up to the top SOC. And then do a discharge from that level. And what they say here is you do a range charge and then you drive at about to 20% of remaining battery on one key turn. What that means is you don't get to do it over a number of days. Once you've charged 180 miles or whatever full range, you then have to drive it down to 20 miles or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
So you need to plan a trip around that activity. It's going to take you a while to drain that much battery. If you do that, they say, then and then charge back to full, the CAC will begin to realign itself. And most likely, they say, this will give you a more accurate CAC reading. But it has to be single drive. They point that out. And the best way, of course, to extend your battery life is to avoid high state of charge type charges. So you only want to do this if you want to adjust your CAC. You're not going to see much of a change there. If you're, and I'll give you an example. If you're at 130, you may go to 132, or it may even get less.
Right.
But the problem here becomes apparently if you're doing if you're doing charges within a narrow band, a shallow cycle as they call it, the CAC will drift up slowly at that point and reflect a higher number than what is actually available. And they say the CAC is only accurate after the pack is balanced and a full battery cycle is performed. What they mean by narrow charging is if you're used to, like I do, I drive the Roadsters from the office home.
Okay.
And that's 7 miles one way.
Okay.
So it's only using a small portion of the battery.
Sure.
So by doing that deep discharge, you're actually using some additional, capacity in that battery.
So in the critical power space, I know that we can calculate the amp hour capacity of a battery string by doing a simple discharge test. You'll
Mhm.
put a monitor onto your battery. It starts off at a float charge. So I'm talking the UPS world here, and then you pull that battery off the float charge, and then you just basically you put a known load onto the UPS. Say it's a kilowatt load, and you have a string of 20 batteries. And once those batteries get to an expected 80% of discharge, you stop the test because you don't want to damage the batteries. Multiply that by 5, and you have your calculated amp hour capacity. It sounds like it's very similar for what's going on in the Tesla.
Thank God in the critical power world, we have expensive equipment like the Midtronics testers that they use.
Yes,
That
exactly.
do all this for us. We don't have to use slide rules anymore, calculators, and, do the math.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's basically what you do is you clamp a Midtronics tester onto it.
Right.
You run your test, and
And it runs your curves for you, and it shows you, and it even
And-
puts a load on it.
yeah, and at the end of the test, you have a CAC.
Right.
But that's so the calculated amp hour capacity, Highlander. It's a single number that car owners have learned how to use to give them an idea of what the strength of the car battery is as compared to all of the other car batteries in the world.
Highlander also says the irony is that Henry Ford and Thomas Edison were best friends. I didn't know that, but I do know that Thomas Alva Edison's childhood was a difficult one. I believe he was even an orphan. And there's a story about why he was hard of hearing later on in life. I think only one ear worked. He was on a train one time I think he had a job on that train. And back then, people used to hit kids when they weren't doing what they wanted them to do. And somebody cuffed him so hard that it broke his eardrum, apparently.
Oh, goodness.
So that haunted him the rest of his life. But he also later on in life, and they didn't tell us this in high school because we were only hearing all the positive aspects about his personality, he became a patent troll. Whereas Nikola Tesla was the exact opposite. He used to give things away without ever considering any kind of monetary reward for any of it, which is probably why he died in poverty. But Thomas saved his shekels and definitely was aggressively pursuing patent infringements the rest of his
Definitely
life.
was. And depending on how much of a fan you are of Thomas Edison, there are those that say Thomas ran both sides of that coin, that he was not only aggressively protecting his patents, but he was just as aggressively going after the patents of other people to try to take them on for himself.
Yeah. Also had a fire at one point in time.
Yes.
And they were standing outside the building, he and his son. And his son was saying, "Oh, my God, Pops, what are we going to do? This is awful." He says, "No, not really. We have buried all our mistakes now, and it gives us a chance to start fresh."
Yeah.
So that was an inspiring comment that's been attributed to Thomas Alva Edison.
And that is really inspiring.
Highlander, he says, "How's the new storage facility coming along, and isn't it commercial time game?" Oh, commercial time.
Commercial time.
Cass is not here.
Cass is not
Yeah,
here.
we're down a staff member today.
But we can talk about the sunglass cases.
I'll do a close up. Here we go.
Yeah, let's get a close up of this. I'll try to run with it this time. These little sunglass cases do a wonderful job for the glasses. No scratches ever. This is a full grain leather, and so it's quite soft on the inside. If I need to store my glasses, this is where I'll store them all the time. We've the company that my son runs has made these cases. We also have the ability to laser engrave. This is the Founder Series sunglass case. We have Signature Series cases, Gruber Motor Company across the back, and the logo on the front. So these cases typically run, I believe it's $79.95, and if you do code Aaron, AARON, you get 10% off. Jesse, have you set up code CAS yet?
No, we don't need one.
Still working on that. And also, Highlander has another comment, says he needs your and Mark's shirt sizes so he could swap with you when his shirt comes out next week. We're still working on the shirts there, Highlander.
We are
Still
yes.
in process.
So we will do that. But these are on the website, available for people who, to be able to purchase. Go to grubermotors.com.
And Niels points out that that Nikola actually worked for Thomas Alva Edison at one point, and he called him primitive. Tesla called Edison primitive, or Edison called Tesla primitive. We'll have to get clarification on that. I think, according to legend anyway, that
Tesla called Edison primitive, yeah.
Yeah, that Thomas Alva Edison felt threatened by Nikola Tesla, saw his genius.
Yeah.
And tasked him with solving a problem, and then promised a monetary reward once that was solved. Had to do with three-phase motors, I believe. And once Nikola Tesla proved that or solved that problem, the monetary reward evaporated.
Ah, okay.
And that was a lesson for Nikola that Thomas Alva Edison couldn't necessarily be trusted. Highlander says, I lived in the town where he lost his hearing. It was in Michigan. Yes, you're right. That's probably why he and Ford were friends. Dearborn, Michigan, as
Yes.
Ford is from.
And then on Instagram, Up in My Panda Tree has a question for us. Thank you for joining us this morning and for dealing with the green screen. Instagram doesn't get to see the beautiful pictures that our other platforms get to see at this point in time. He says, you guys are the best. After supercharging, can you just drive, or is it advisable to wait before you drive? When it's hot out, I hear the fans still on after I charge.
You know, driving after a charge can safely be done because the Tesla engineers anticipated some of these types of, situations.
Yeah.
And they would not have left a bug in the car that was that vital.
Well, exactly. And actually, part of the effort from charging does go into active battery cooling. Part of the cooling process is that there is a small radiator in the front of your Tesla. And so driving after you supercharge or driving after you charge, not only is it not a bad thing, it might actually help your battery to get cooler faster, even though it's hot temperatures.
Good point. And, by the way, that radiator that was just mentioned, it's in the front bumper of the car down low. On the driver's side is definitely one. There may be one on the other side. But our service guys oftentimes will find a plastic bag jammed in there. They got picked up as they were blowing around the street.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then, of course, with the negative air pressure drawing air through that condenser, it sticks to the front. And if it remains there, that will compromise your AC or your battery.
Yeah, it definitely could, especially here in a place like Phoenix where it gets so hot.
So it's something to look for. They do advise customers, look down into those portals every once in a while and make sure there aren't any obstructions there.
And Pete,
yeah,
I think the thing that Up in My Panda Tree might have been referring to, which we talked with the guys from New about yesterday, is the preconditioning before charging. Mm-hmm. So you actually do need to, when you map in your Tesla to go to a supercharger, it'll start preconditioning before you get there. That way, when you get there, you can just charge full supercharging. Unless you're going to a non-Tesla charger, which they're still hoping that Tesla comes out with allowing preconditioning. But that's the thing that's difficult with supercharging is preconditioning it beforehand.
Mm-hmm. And it really puts a wrench in the whole works with the independent charging providers, because I can't imagine that Tesla is ever going to talk to the other independent charging providers.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. Although my understanding with the preconditioning thing is that when you have your Tesla, if you're out driving it actively, you're actually it's going to work to try to get the battery to a state where it's within its best operating performance tolerances. That means if it's cold outside, it's going to use battery energy to try to heat the battery while you're driving. If it's too hot, it will pull air conditioning out of your cabin to cool down the battery.
Right.
And both of those types of things are, in effect, a type of preconditioning.
So we talked in the last podcast about, in fact, we had one of our engineers here, Brad Luchik, and he was talking about the laptop capability that we've begun to utilize, where we send a laptop to the customer for a deeper dive diagnostic with the Roadster. And the most successful example within the last few months was one in an island off the Mediterranean, where it would have been very difficult getting a car shipped out of to have it repaired. And so anyway, with the laptop, they were able to actually diagnose, reload firmware, and resolve his problem without him needing to go to either a service center in Europe or ship the car here. We've had such great demand for that that we have 3 people backed up now waiting for extra laptops. And you can probably speak to that. We've retrieved some laptops.
We've retrieved laptops. We're getting them configured. We're going to have probably 3 or 4 laptops that are available to go out to customers at any time. The laptop that went to the Mediterranean actually got delayed coming back to us in customs,
Right.
because the shipping service didn't know what it was that was being sent back to us.
And of course, concerns about security and software and his high-tech information being released and all that.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
so these laptops, the whole concept is just amazing, because you don't have to ship your car here. And there are a number of things by the car pulling a log file. You send a log file to us. We're able to diagnose the log file. Like in this case, we saw that, oh, wow, a firmware update will probably solve this customer's problem.
Yes.
We can just deploy a laptop to the person with, and then basically hand-holding, tell them how to plug the laptop into the right port, and we're on our way.
And how to operate the software to initiate a reload. So with these PC tools on site and an engineer on our end, our ability to diagnose and resolve issues often prevents costly vehicle transport to our service center or Tesla service centers.
Yeah, it's a great benefit, very exciting development in our service offerings.
Speaking of remote access, we have a picture here that we can pop up, Jesse, and I believe it is called OVMS. Do I not have it out here? It looks like I do not. All right. It's on our website. I don't know if you can bring that up, Jess, under the e-store. And the OVMS acronym stands for Open Vehicle Management System. It's not unique to Tesla. It is a black box, literally, that connects to your VMS portion of the Tesla Roadster, and it provides communication to your cell phone or to our cell phone if we're troubleshooting. And it is reestablishing essentially the network connection that was available on Tesla Roadsters back when the 1G network was alive and active, which is long gone. Used to be the Tesla service centers could log into your car just like they do with the later models. Thank you, Jesse. That's the one. And what it does now is it gives us a glimpse. It gives an engineer, a technician, a glimpse into what's going on in the car. The other benefit for an owner having this installed in your car, and we highly recommend this for any Roadsters that come in, it's not that expensive, as you can see, is that you now get early warning when or if your Roadster gets bricked. We have another one now. Customer is on vacation, out of the country, Roadster was deemed to be bricked, won't charge anymore. That owner would have received notification the instant it was heading that way, been able to make a call to a neighbor, relative, or whatever, go to the house, check the circuit breaker, try a different charge cable, and fix the problem. This OVMS box allows you to do that. It will give you early notification of a variety of issues that are going on in the car. In our storage facility, and we never completed that question, how's the storage facility coming?
Yes.
We are building a Tesla Roadster collector car storage facility. It is about 80% done at this point. In fact, Nick is coming in to start on the tile in the office areas this week.
Okay.
The outside of the building has been painted. The interior is almost done except for the epoxy floor inside the storage area. And what we're going to have in that building connected to every car, and it'll be a mandatory requirement for storage, is an OVMS system, not just for us, so that we can see what's going on with the car. But for you as the customer, it'll go right to your cell phone. It will tell you whether we're charging it on time and to what levels. It'll tell you whether there's a coolant issue problem. Any of those types of things will be visible to the customer on cell phone and to our telemetry system that is collecting data from all the cars.
Yeah, and I would hope that most Tesla Roadster owners understand by now, but I'm not going to assume. When a Tesla Roadster starts to discharge and gets close to dying, it gives out warnings. It gives out a warning beep for a couple of days.
It chirps for a while.
Yeah,
it does
it
everything
chirps.
possible to complain and say, I need something. You know?
So the fact is that car is trying to communicate, but if you're not there, you don't know. And OVMS simply takes that communication that's already happening and puts it into something that it can transmit to your phone app.
Yep. All right. Getting back to the Tesla Takeover event in Europe, it will be the 25th and 26th of May, Flachau, Austria, outside of Salzburg. There's a supercharger location there. Flachau is normally a ski resort. So by May, it will be green rolling hills, the Sound of Music type, look and feel. And of course, great food, great community activities. What they're saying here is there will be 1,000 cars there, up to, and a wide variety of speakers. A lot of influencers will be there, myself included. Workshops, live music, light shows, and so much more. For the kids, tobogganing, and of course, hiking. And it's an opportunity to bring the Tesla community all together in one place. And there will be clubs from all over Europe that will be going to this event. The U.S. version is highly successful. May Musk was at the last one. And for 3 years now, they've been doing this in the U.S. and California. And this will be the first one in Europe. And we're hoping that this will be just as popular and just as well attended.
I'm wondering, I happened to see a video just this morning. Are they going to synchronize the cars so that they all lights blink and stuff to music?
I don't know that, but that would be cool.
That would
wouldn't
be
it?
pretty
Yeah,
cool, wouldn't it?
It would be, yes. Bunch of questions coming in. Instagram, up in my panda tree says, wow, thank you. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Niels asks, can you make the laptop just as a pre-configured virtual machine that customers can download? Actually, I don't think we can, because there is a unique connector, connecting cable that goes from the VMS system into the laptop. And that cable is one of the key components of the whole thing. Outside of that, then I would say, yeah, probably could. And Niels goes on to say, virtual machines can be set up to listen for input on the peripherals, I think. Yes, they can. In fact, actually, Niels, the laptops we set up generally are running either Windows 10 or Windows 11 for Microsoft. Puppy Suite is Linux, and we have it running on a virtual machine inside the Windows 10 or Windows 11 box. So yes, it can be set up to listen, but again, it's the physical cable connection that we have the potential issues with. Rather than try to spend time potentially spinning our wheels with a customer who has not set up a virtual machine correctly or doesn't have the know-how to do so, we will simply go in by giving them the laptop. Our engineers actually remotely access the laptop. So the sum total of what the customer has to do is make sure that the laptop gets connected to the car. Once that's done, our engineers take over and they'll do whatever updates need to be done.
We have an YouTube influencer called Automotive Woman. It's Juliana Chiovitti, actually, in Canada. And she is like Supercar Blondie. And I like Automotive Woman better than Supercar Blondie. She's more technical, and she actually knows how to drive these cars since her parents owned a racetrack.
Ah, okay.
But she did a segment on us for our Tesla Roadster battery bunker. And it's out on YouTube currently. You can see it by going to a site on YouTube called Automotive Woman, all one word. And what it does is it describes the battery bunker that we've developed that puts any kind of charging activity for the batteries outside the battery safety management systems in the car into an isolated, safe environment away from all the cars and the main building. And we really think that this is the future of EV auto repair because you can't do both activities in the same building, which the insurance companies are also telling us is an important requirement. Anytime you have an elevated risk, that needs to be separated. So for those of you interested, it's out on YouTube. Automotive Woman is the channel, and Linda Chiavitti does a great job. She was actually here with one of her social media people end of last year, I believe it was. And yeah, very pleasant people, knowledgeable, and I think she's going to be the next supercar blondie. Well worth watching. All right. The other thing that I wanted to share with you was a Glacier Blue Roadster that is currently in test drive mode. And if we can bring up the picture, let me see if I can find the image here for you, Jesse. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. It's Glacier Blue -1 and then Glacier Blue. Yeah, we'll go through those. And this is an interesting story for those of you that have Tesla Roadsters. This is a Tesla Roadster that got bricked. Obviously, it did not have an OVMS system in the car because it would have alerted the owner through his cell phone, hey, something's wrong, I need something. So this car got bricked, and it was bricked for a few months. It came to us, by the way, this was during test drive. I figured since I need to run down the mileage anyway, let's take it to some pretty places and take some pictures. And this is the south side of Camelback Mountain. It's almost like Red Rock country up there. And this is a Glacier Blue Roadster. This owner wanted to replicate a look of a Tesla Roadster that we have on our gallery section of our website. It used to belong to Dana Brunetti, and if we can go to Glacier Blue -5, Jesse, we can bring up the inspiration for this Roadster. -5. There we go. This was a car that sold on Barrett-Jackson years ago, came to us for upgrades, and a movie producer, Dana Brunetti, owned this. Obviously had some artistic talent and taste. He put little running board lights in the front bumper, painted the wheels white, powder coated, put the Tesla logo on the side with a little Tesla T. And, you know, we fell in love with this car.
I remember that car.
It made Glacier Blues pop. It suddenly was an exciting color. Remember, I keep changing my colors, right?
I do.
All right.
I do.
So this particular customer was inspired by this look. We can go back to Glacier 1 at this point, and you can see the only thing missing in Glacier in this picture is the wheels are silver. However, the customer has wheels at home, an extra set. He's going to get them powder coated white and replicate that look of Dana Brunetti's car. Dana's car currently is no longer owned by him. It's a Tesla manager in California that has had this car for about 3 years or more now, I believe, and is thoroughly, of course, enjoying it. By the way, when I drive this car, people no longer pull up alongside and say, "What is that?" They say, "I didn't know Tesla made a small car." It's a different question now, but they still talk about it.
You know? Okay, sure.
But yeah, you get a lot of attention with this car. So it came in bricked. The next picture, Glacier Blue -2, shows the incoming voltage. This is supposed to be 390 to 400 volts. It's 37.4 volts string voltage, meaning brick, sheet to sheet.
Yeah.
And when they're this low, it's questionable whether they can be recovered. So the next thing we do is we take a look at what the brick condition is, which is in Glacier Blue -3. And each of those little blue lines is a brick. Each of the gray faded lines above it, and you'll see 9 blue lines per gray line, is a sheet, and there are 9 bricks per sheet. So you can pinpoint that sheet number 1, it wasn't bad, from 3 to 3.2 volts, but Sheet number 2 had something that was down close to 2 volts and then up to about 3 volts. So one of those bricks was very low. And you can see some other low ones in that report. What you try to avoid is getting below 2 volts, because at that level, 18650 cells begin a destructive chemical process, depending on how long they stay at that state of charge. So this was the pre-repair chart. And the next one, Glacier-3, I believe it is, or 4. Yeah, let's go to 4. There we go. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a military haircut with those bricks.
Yeah.
It is a brush cut, and it's nice and level and even. How we got to this level was pulling those sheets out that had the low bricks, and we found resistive cells in those bricks. And you can't snip more than 4 per brick because it begins to affect the performance of the car.
Sure.
In this case, I think it was only 1 or 2 per affected brick in 3 different sheets and 3 different bricks. And after that repair and balancing with our 11-point charger, we ended up with this nice flat curve. That then convinced us that we're ready to test drive. So the pack went up back into the car, and that first picture that you saw where we showed the car driving around Camelback Mountain is a result of this repair. What we look for now is we're doing alternate charge-discharge cycles, and we're looking for a baseline established. And currently the baseline is about 156 miles range, which isn't too far from where it was before it came in. And if it holds there, then we know we have a solid repair.
Right. And there are, if it starts to decline or something like that, then we know that we probably have another resistive cell or some other issue then.
Exactly, yes. So this is the type of work that we do when these cars come in bricked. And before we even allow your car to come in bricked, we're going to ask for a log file because we want to see that incoming voltage.
Yes.
We received one, for example, that was in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 volts string voltage, which means if you divide that by 99, you see how low the voltage is on the bricks.
Yes.
That car came in, and it didn't come in for a recovery. It came in for a Tesla Roadster battery pack replacement, which is also a reason for you to send your car to us, because after you get your battery pack replaced, oftentimes they flush out the real reason that your car got bricked. If it wasn't neglect, you know, circuit breaker tripped, somebody wasn't paying attention, didn't plug it in to charge, there may have been a technical problem in the car. And after a battery replacement, that will reveal itself. Now, if it's a PEM problem, Tesla's solution is you have to replace your PEM. That's $8,500.
Right.
We're able to repair them. And while we're repairing it, we'll ask you, do you want to upgrade it now and get rid of all the deferred maintenance in that PEM? So there's some other reasons to bring the cars here.
Well, and more than once, we've also seen our customers come to us and say, hey, I'm going to need a new battery. While it's in queue waiting for a battery, go ahead and do the PEM upgrade.
Exactly.
And so we can get both things done in the same time.
There are other reasons. If you have a resistive cell Roadster that is on its way to getting bricked or is already bricked, that resistive cell is in 1 sheet out of 11. So that means that you more than likely have 10 good sheets.
Yes.
If that's the case, Tesla won't accept any Roadsters for replacement unless your car's bricked. So what we essentially do is we will bring the car in, we will remove the 10 good sheets, put those into a consignment program, and then put dead sheets into the car, which Tesla scraps anyway.
Right.
You now have a brick Roadster that can go to Tesla for the pack replacement, but in the meantime, we're generating revenue for you because every one of those good sheets that we keep on life support in the battery bunker waiting for a donor car or for a car that needs a donor pack now becomes revenue. We have one customer that harvested $24,000 just by having consignment sales taking place in his brick Roadster.
So in other words, about 60% or so of his new battery pack was paid for
by the old sheets.
By the old sheets on the old pack. So he only paid a net of Somewhere around $20,000 after
Exactly.
tax.
See, you're doing the math. Yes.
Yes.
So that's another reason to bring a car to Gruber Motor Company. And then, of course, if you want the rest of the deferred maintenance resolved, none of these Roadsters these days have any decent suspension components, even if they're low mileage Roadsters, because it sat there, for 16 years oftentimes. So anyway, give us a call, talk to us. We've got solutions for you. Looks like we got a few questions up there.
Yeah, I think we just have one more from Highlander. It says Gruber Motors is going to need to buy a lot more land once all these other Teslas go out of warranty.
We had visitors yesterday, actually, that came out, and they were walking with Chaz. And I knew that they were visitors for us because Chaz usually wears summer clothes, shorts and T-shirt, right?
Yes.
And there were two suits walking with Chaz. Now, either he was getting arrested or they were, our customers that were coming to see us.
Absolutely.
I didn't mean the arrested part. Chaz doesn't do things that would get him arrested. But, yeah, so he said, he says they've got 9 buildings. We have 7 buildings, commercial buildings here. Some are leased and some are owned. And by the way, the neighborhood's changing. The building to the south of us just sold.
Oh, it did, finally.
26, yep. All right, so it looks like we're coming to the close of our Tesla Roadster podcast. We thoroughly enjoy the audience. We find that the majority of audience comes in after this is broadcast on YouTube, and that makes sense because not everybody has time to carve out in the middle of the day at 11 o'clock. If you have questions, you can post them either on the video or you can email us at ev@gruber.com. Tell us what you'd like to see more of, what kind of content interests you, and we'll accommodate that.
We look forward to seeing you this next week. We'll be here at 10 a.m. Eastern with the standard EV podcast, and then at 11 a.m. I'm sorry, not Eastern, Mountain time. Mountain
Pacific,
time.
No, Pacific. Well, yeah,
Mountain Day. Mountain Standard Pacific Daylight Time.
So confusing.
It is. Anyway, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.